Hello, seniors. I am Dr. Robert Harrison. What do you do if you're suddenly diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer? You're scared. You get all these different opinions thrown at you. You're in a state of confusion. Today, I want to give you some relief on that. I'm not going to get into statistics. I want to get into strategies. And one of the biggest questions that people ask their doctors when they have cancer is, what do I eat? And the answer is usually, it doesn't really matter. And that is so far from the truth because you can either feed cancer or you can stress cancer or starve cancer. Cancer itself is very sick. It's living on the edge. And so what we want to do is we want a strategy that leverages everything you do to overcome that. So we'll talk about nutrition. We'll talk about foods. I also want to talk about prolonged fasting because some people can't do that. They have too much weight loss. So then what do? I have a solution for that. You really need to know also the 4 main causes of colon cancer and what's unique about colon cancer. So I'm going to cover that as well. One thing about cancer and other chronic diseases is it does not happen overnight. It takes decades to develop. And so if you don't have cancer and you're watching this video, make mental notes on what I'm going to say because this is going to be very important to avoid cancer. Let's talk about what's unique about cancer. Number 1, cancer is heterogeneous. What does that mean? That means that cancer is not one disease. There's many different types of cancer which relate to different genetic weaknesses, to using different fuels, to affecting the immune system differently. That is why you cannot use one single diet for all cancers. But I'm going to show you what you should be using. I already mentioned this right here. Cancer is very, very sick. It's living on the edge, but we want to know its weaknesses. And one really big weakness is this right here. They're metabolically inflexible. What do I mean by that? It means they have a very difficult time going from one fuel to a different fuel source. So going from glucose to ketones or fat, they have a difficult time doing that. The great majority of the population is not metabolically flexible. In fact, with my own body and my own health, I was not very metabolically flexible. I had to correct that. So we will cover that as well. We want to stress it out and keep pressure on that cancer. So it has no resources, so it can't keep growing and taking over. As soon as the cancer finally adapts to a certain diet, we switch it over to a different diet. The other thing that's unique about cancer is that the origin of cancer comes from damaged mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy factories of the cell. What happens with cancer is when the mitochondria becomes damaged. As a survival mechanism, the body will then switch to an ancient pathway called glycolysis. This is a plan B with fuel for cancer. When the cancer cell goes into this mode here, it cannot produce very much energy. So what does it do? It starts going crazy and starts growing really fast to hog a lot of your energy and steal your resources. That's what happens with cancer. But to compensate, they're hogging a lot of glucose. This is why in a PET scan, they're scanning areas of the body where there's this high level of glucose. That's usually where the cancer cell is. So the goal is not necessarily to starve the cancer, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. It's to stress the cancer, okay? Stress it out to the point where it can't keep growing, it starts shriveling up, and then it dies off. This is why we're going to rotate the diets. And also, I highly recommend you do many things at once to deal with this cancer, not just one single thing. Whether you decide to do chemo, radiation, or not, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you additional data because with cancer, it's desperate and it will do all sorts of things to overcome the barriers. Even when you get chemo or radiation therapy, you'll usually kill the majority of cancer, but the cancer cells that don't die become stronger and they can come back, and now the chemo doesn't work anymore. So now let's cover, where does cancer actually come from? Number 1, chronic insulin resistance. This is why a diabetic, for example, is more at risk for cancer than other types of conditions because of this insulin resistance where the body can't really absorb insulin. So the pancreas makes more initially and it starts making more and more. So all this extra insulin acts like a growth factor. It can make things grow like tumors. When you have insulin resistance, this is where you get metabolic inflexibility. And also, on the flip side, if you want to correct metabolic inflexibility, you have to correct insulin resistance. This is why going on a low-carb ketogenic diet is so important. Number 2, chronic inflammation. Cancer travels or migrates into areas of inflammation. Inflammation is a state where you don't have much oxygen. Let's take a smoker, for example, right? If someone's a chronic smoker, they're going to create a lack of oxygen in their lungs because of all the damage in the scar tissue. Number 3, chronic microbiome disruption. If someone has a history of damage in the microbiome from junk foods, antibiotics, they're going to be more susceptible to getting cancer because the microbes really protect you against cancer in many different ways, which I'm going to cover a little bit of that in this presentation as well in a bit. And then we have number 4, chronic toxicity. This could be alcohol, could be smoking, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides. It could be many different things that are toxic, but it's the chronic exposure to toxicity. So, of course, the more you combine these, the more you're going to get cancer. Now, what's interesting is all of these things here are the root causes of mitochondrial damage. Now, some people say, well, what if I'm genetically susceptible? Yeah, you might be, but it also takes environmental things to push it over the edge. Just because you have a genetic weakness does not mean you're going to get cancer. I want to just talk a little bit about the colon for a second. Colon cells, okay? Because colon cells are very unique in that they will get their fuel from something called butyrate. And butyrate is a chemical that comes from a microbe eating fiber, and then they produce this chemical called butyrate. And that's like the primary fuel for the colon cell. And so butyrate strengthens the lining. It helps feed the colon. It's anti-inflammatory. And this is where people get, oh, you need to consume more fiber to prevent cancer. But there's a paradox here. Okay, fiber can also make things worse. Fiber can actually inflame your colon. Fiber can make you bloated. And this is why people that get bloating and SIBO, it's called small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, do very well with the carnivore diet, which is like no fiber, no plants, no nuts, no beans, no grains, anything. Okay. If you had a history of antibiotics starting as a child, or maybe you were never breastfed, so you didn't have those normal microbes from the mother, that can be a problem later in life because now the microbes are not balanced in a way to deal with the fiber. And a lot of people, they don't have the microbes to even break down the fiber. So this is why you can have 2 people eat the exact same thing. One person feels like they're pregnant, the other person is just fine. It's all about the microbes and what microbes you have and where those microbes are located. And I have a lot of videos on that topic, and I will put some links down below. Now, the one thing you need to know, the worse the cancer is as far as prognosis, the more you need to do what's called prolonged fasting, because prolonged fasting gives the cancer cells no fuel and a lot of stress. And I've had people do it up to like even 30 to 40 days and actually get rid of their cancer. So what can you do? The fasting-mimicking diet. It mimics fasting as far as the results because you are consuming some calories between 700 to a little bit over 1,000 calories a day, but you're going low protein, low carb, and low fat. If you don't have cancer, you should start doing smaller prolonged fasting cycles, whether it's 3 days or 5 days every so often, because that's one of the most powerful things to kill cancer. Cancer cannot live in a fasting state. A couple other really important things to add to the mix are high doses of vitamin D3, minimally 30,000 IUs of vitamin D3. But vitamin D is the most important nutrient for your immune system. It's also going to help support the mitochondria. Now, if you can be outside in the sun, that would be awesome as well, because the sun doesn't just give you vitamin D, but it can give you other things too, like infrared, which actually is going to heal the cells from a different angle. And also oxygen, to get as much oxygen as you can, whether it's a hyperbaric chamber or it's basically exercise walking, very important because cancer doesn't like oxygen. Okay, so now let's talk about this rotating diet. And just so you know, everything that I say, I'm going to detail in a download for you, so you'll have that all in writing, so you don't have to write any of this down for your first meal. It might be vegetable soup with good amount of salt in there. And then you might add some olive oil or avocado oil, cold rest, very important. Your second meal might be steamed zucchini, spinach with a small portion of olives or an avocado, and that's pretty much what you can eat. Now you'll have electrolytes and supplements, but it's not a lot of food, but it's something. And the reason why you're going low fat is in an advanced state of cancer, it's not just glucose that cancer can survive on. It can also survive on fats and ketones. It'll use those as well. So this first diet is basically just kind of really restricting the resources and the available foods for that cancer to live on. But it's only 3 to 5 days. But you're not going to do fish, meat, or eggs. You're not going to do cheese. And you're definitely not going to do grains or sugar. After 3 to 5 days, you're going to go into phase 2. And phase 2 is between 7 and 14 days. This is pretty much going to support your colon, and it's going to be moderate protein, moderate fat. One fat that you can have is the omega-3 fats from fish oil, like especially olive oil. You can do that. And then you're going to control your carbohydrates. All the foods that I'm going to recommend have various things that actually help reduce cancer. So they have polyphenols, different things in them. So all these ingredients will help support the reduction of cancer in different ways. Now, phase 3 is for 3 to 5 days. Okay, a little bit shorter, but now we're going to actually increase the protein. We'll keep the fat moderate. Now, why don't we go high in the fat? Because anytime you have advanced stage any type of cancer, that's when the cancer can start living off of ketones, not ketones from your own fat. It's two different types of ketones. So I'm not going to get into specific of that, but you don't have to worry about the ketones from fasting. Just have to worry about going too high with the fat. So now we're getting into 6 to 8 ounces and then moderate protein, and we're going to go low carb. So what's going to happen? And the cancer is going to start to want to adapt to that, but we're going to then switch it after 3 to 5 days. So we're just going to take these three things and keep rotating them and not give the cancer a chance to adapt. That's what the strategy is. Some key nutrients: vitamin D3, zinc, omega-3, fatty acids, polyphenols, turmeric, cruciferous vegetables, herbs and spices are good. Green tea is going to be very important. Fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, if you can tolerate it. We're going to support the body, we're going to support the mitochondria, we're going to support the immune system, we're going to support your muscle, we're going to fix fermentation. And of course, I need to give you a disclaimer. Check with your doctor before implementing any of this. But I think most doctors will look at this and think, wow, this makes common sense. I don't see anything that would interfere with whatever treatment they're giving you. I have a free download that I want to give to you. This free download is my daily routine in a checklist. This is a routine that I use every day to feel like I'm 18 years old, even though I'm 60 years old. And I want to give it to you for free. And so there's a little link down below. Click it and definitely download that. Now, for those of you that have cancer or don't have cancer, the million-dollar question is, how do you fix this right here? Which is probably one of the most common things that people have that create the most problems: chronic insulin resistance. And for that information, it's right in this video right here. Watch this right now. Check it out.